Hi, Dan Willingham back with you for the third of 5 videos on the subject of reading. Last time we said that writing is a code for spoken language, and we said that point seems fairly obvious. But there's an equally obvious problem if we want to leave it there and say writing is nothing more or less than a code for sound. If writing were just a code for sound, then a sentence like this one shouldn't look funny to us. The sound is just fine. So how do we explain this? How do we explain that for an experienced reader, that does look funny? Well, what a psychologist would say is that people don't care just about sound. One of the ways that you read a word like happy is by seeing the specific string of letters H-A-P-P-Y. Not just any string of letters that when you put the sound of the letters together leads to the sound happy. In other words, we don't just have a mental representation of what words sound like so that when I hear happy, I can identify that, oh, this person is saying the word happy. We also know what written words look like. We have spelling representations in the mind. What's interesting about this is spelling is not really emphasized very much when kids are learning how to read. Think about what that type of lesson might look like. I suppose a child had never been introduced what individual letters sound like. I might just show them a string of letters and say, so what do you think this word is? The child, of course, would have no idea. I'd say, this is the word ripe. Let's try another one. What do you think this word is? Again, the child wouldn't know or maybe would guess, and I would give them feedback and say, this is the word dog, and so forth. Now, the reason we don't teach children how to read that way is obviously this would take forever and it would be really, really boring. Eventually, I mean, in principle, it ought to work. Eventually, you'd be able to identify strings of letters, what they look like, and know what word it is they were supposed to represent, without necessarily having any need for bringing sound into the picture at all. But we don't do it that way. So the question is, how does an experienced reader end up with a mental representation of what words look like? Most psychologists ascribe to the self-teaching hypothesis. And the idea is that instead of me showing you a word and then telling you what the word is, identifying the word for you, instead you see the word yourself in the course of reading and you identify the word yourself. You provide your own feedback. That's why it's called the self-teaching hypothesis. You're able to do that through the sound-based code. So you see the letter string DOG, and then because you've learned how to sound words out, you sound out, you say, ah, that's the word dog. Now you've identified the word dog, and now the identity of that word is in the same place at the same time as you're seeing the letter string. So the idea is that over the course of months, with enough experience with specific words, you come to develop a spelling representation for the word dog and all the other words that you read frequently. So when you reach that point, is it the case now that you don't really sound words out anymore? And now you're reading based solely on what words look like, and sound sort of has served its purpose and it exits the picture? Well, the answer seems to be a pretty clear no. There are lots of different experiments that have been conducted to test whether really experienced readers who do have these spelling representations use sound or don't. I'll tell you about one of the experiments that's straightforward and easy to appreciate. You have experienced readers read tongue twisters, and they're projected on a screen and they're reading them silently. And then you compare the reading speed for tongue twisters to carefully controlled sentences that are equally sort of nonsensical the way tongue twisters tend to be, but that aren't difficult to say. And what you find is people are slower to read tongue twisters even when they're reading silently. So that's one source of evidence we have that people, even experienced readers, continue to decode sound even once they've developed to the point that they have good spelling representations as well. So that's going to do it for decoding. In the next video, we'll talk about word meaning and the role it plays in reading.